Hey, what's up, everybody? This is GameLogIQ from the Rounding Off Infinity gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast of the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, back with another episode. This is episode number 340, and here with me, as always, I have my stalwart partner in crime, Mr. DBQ Hams. How you doing, DBQ?
Oh, I'm good. I'm glad to be talking. This is a Tuesday rather than a Sunday, so thanks for the adjustment. It was a busy weekend and celebrating my wife and I 23rd anniversary. So,
Oh, congratulations, man. That's
well,
huge.
thank you. That is, and surprisingly, I was not podcasting on that night. So, sorry, gentlemen. And so, this shows you how much I love this podcast, talking with you and our audience. That tonight I could be sitting in a queue trying to get into the final shape for Destiny 2. 16,000 into the queue, somewhere in there. But no, I'm here with you talking about video games.
From what I saw just before we went live, I think you could be sitting in the queue and would be just fine. I don't know that.
No, I think it was earlier today where there were issues.
They were having problems.
Okay. Yes, but see, if I tell myself I'd be sitting in a queue, makes me not feel too bad about missing it. So that's okay.
I am just trying to get
no problem.
components of our agenda sorted out. So
thanks for being here. Glad to have you here on a Tuesday.
Yeah, thanks so much. I was unsure how many people were going to catch on to the schedule change. And stick with it. So I appreciate that one of our regulars, Wara, has stopped by. So let's get into it with segment one, our main gaming's goings on for the week. The game that I have been into is, this is driving me nuts because I always screw this up. The game I've been getting into is EA Sports' F1 24.
Controller or wheel and pedals?
Wheel and pedals. And so this is the first year that typically the way I go into the annual release of F1 for the season is we're about to see the start here. And I think this is one of the few rare times that I actually, let's see. No, this is it. No, Verstappen. I think I screwed up the initial start of this race. This is round 3 at Australia, and I actually beat Verstappen for my first time into turn 1, and then I proceeded to crash, so I actually had to start over. So I was quite angry. But usually when I start off a season of F1, I typically start with controller, and then I transition to wheel and pedals thereafter, because F1 is just grueling, even as a game. And so one of the things I've mentioned, in particular my left hand, which you need for the brake in this game, I tend to, if anyone has ever watched Sons of Anarchy and is familiar with the character Clay Morrow, one of Clay's big problems as he ages is his hands are getting stiffer, and so he's not able to ride a motorcycle as long. And in the motorcycle gang culture, or motorcycle club, as the Sons of Anarchy asserted that they were, you can't lead if you can't ride a bike. And so he spends most of the five seasons of that show or so out of the 7, struggling to retain leadership of the motorcycle club while his hands are failing. I sort of have the same problem, and so this year has been the year that I said, look, I'm just going straight to wheel and pedals. It's such an incredibly better experience. I talked about F122 on here a few times, as well as several past iterations of Formula One, and it's just so much better on wheel and pedals and I've got the wheel and pedals mounted on an H-frame now, so now I think they're a little quicker to configure and pop up because I don't keep them rigged. So it's not like clamping them down to the desk and then trying to remember which direction the clamp goes right to clamp down and how to unscrew it because the threading direction is is backwards because it's a clamp underneath it. So it's a whole thing. So, but now I just take the H frames and I unfold them basically and unscrew and rescrew down the securing clamps and then so I got by for stopping there and I'm now in the lead. So yeah, it's pretty interesting this year because there's a lot of seems like a lot of stuff going on online. I'm hoping this doesn't kill the show here. I popped it to 1080p because that 360p was kind of getting to me. There's a lot of stuff going on online now about how people are doing with this game. And I suspect, and I'm playing on PlayStation 5, so I suspect that a large part of the problem is that, or a large part of the causality in where people are experiencing the problems, I suspect these are mostly people playing on PC. And there could be anything, right? Additionally, going along with that, like people who are on a particular video card or bothering with certain drivers or people who are on a certain CPU. The things that have been posted online that I've seen are just crazy things like the AI, like certain AI cars going wackadoodle and just, they've always been particularly aggressive and much less concerned than any human being who's familiar with the Formula One sport. Cars will just disintegrate, right, if they get into contact with each other. I mean, you're going around the track here at, it speeds in excess of 180 miles per hour. And these cars will just crumple, at the slightest impact. And the AI has never been as sensitive as I feel like they should be. But this year they just, you'll be coming along, the things people have posted, you'll be coming alongside an AI car and it will just out and out, just like careen right directly into you. There have been weird graphical glitches like an AI car, slamming into a street barrier, or these side barriers here you see me going by, and then the car flipping upside down and then continuing to go around the track. So there's huge problems that people are experiencing. And I think the biggest problem people are having is there's lots of indications or I call them claims of handling problems where you'll be going in a straight line and all of a sudden the car will just waggle left to right, like through no steering input that you've given it. Now, what I've seen and what I'm pretty certain about is the handling model for this year's version of F1. There's definitely something different about it. I think my experience on PlayStation 5 is that it's more sensitive. The car, where I've seen that waggle, it hasn't been, it's not been due to my input, but I have definitely felt it through force feedback. And where I have seen it, it has been where I go into a corner and I'm on the accelerator too hard and I lose a bit of mechanical grip on the car, right? So it's, it loses that traction and slips. I have been particularly seen it, the most notable point where I've seen it is round 1 in Bahrain, Sakar circuit, going down the front straight, right? On the starting straight. And in particular, one of the first practice sessions, I started off with a flying lap, came out on the track. My teammate was actually out on the track ahead of me. And I was like, okay, this is an AI car. First of all, I'm the lead driver. He's not just going to get out of the way for me like he should, right? So that front straight on the track is a DRS zone. So DRS was on. I also activated ERS, which is, what they used to call KERS, which is the battery system that charges under braking and then gives you additional kinetic power to activate as you so choose. So I had DRS and ERS on. I'm up at 214 miles per hour. And if you are up above, I would say 180, 185 coming down that front straight, and you hit that maybe 200 yards before, meters, whatever, before the entrance into the turn, before the breaking point of the turn. And when you pick up to that speed, you'll feel the car start to float, right? You'll feel yourself start to lose traction, and you will feel that you'll actually feel the loss of that grip in the wheel, in the force feedback. So that's what I've been exposed to. I don't think that accounts for what people are seeing, but because I haven't been exposed to it whatsoever on PlayStation 5, I'm pretty certain it's got to be a PC version problem, although I haven't asked any of those people. I think the most notable thing for this year, and as you can see from this drive, I'm having a great, incredible time playing this game this year. I have, we talked about F22 a few weeks ago, in fact, and, you mentioned, like the stories I was telling about, like the fights with Lewis Hamilton. I've had some amazing races, these first 3 races. A couple very disappointing, like critical heartbreaks. And I'll talk about those here in a second. But I think the key thing that I've picked up on is that there is a rule change this season, which I don't pay attention to the rule changes as much anymore, even though they're a huge part of Formula One, where I guess ERS is active during qualifying laps now, which just means, like, in addition to racing like a perfect, like qualifying lap, which you have to pole, right, when you're fighting guys like Verstappen and Sainz and, all these, great drivers. But now people are goosing the car, right, using ERS. So they're actually, like, their total top speed and their qualifying times are actually better now. So if you haven't, like, mastered and learned how to manage ERS going around these tracks the first few seasons that, ERS has been around for a long time. This year it's critical, because as far as I know, there's no way for you to, like, turn that off. Like, you just have to manage it going around. Where I put this game away for a little while is, so it was at Australia. Maybe it wasn't Australia. I think it was. So now I'm forgetting where. No, it's actually this race. This is actually the heartbreak race. And as I'm going around the track, and as you see now, I'm ahead of Verstappen. So this is maybe I can skip and show or get to the point. So as you can see now, if you can tell now it's raining, and so I'm racing this race. I'm beating Verstappen. I think I was actually out like up to 25 seconds ahead of him. It starts raining. I'm on hard tires because I'm on a 2-stopper strategy. It's my 3rd stint. I'm on the hards. My engine chief says I don't need to come in for new tires, so I stay out for quite a while. I then see Verstappen start gaining on me. So he was out at 25 seconds back. He's now at 15 seconds back. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? And if you look up here, I don't share my cursor usually. So if you look up here in the upper left-hand corner, that's where everybody's position and delta times are. But that second paddle, that second column to the right, that's in a slightly different shading than the main panel with the names, is where everyone's tires are and what compound they're on. About the time, so when I look up and I see like, oh crap, he's gaining like out of nowhere, like by huge amounts, I look up and I'm like, crap, he's gone in and changed to intermediates. So right about the time my engine chief says, hey, you need to come in, we need to change your tires. So I go into the pit. Now, in past years in Formula One, what happens is, and I think it still happens, is when you get damaged, like when you bump into somebody and you get like some front wing damage, what was I gonna say? Yeah, you'll get a pop up, kind of like in Google Maps when there's like a accident or a backup, and they'd say, "Hey, I have a new route." You get a pop up from the engine chief that says, "Hey, I have a new recommended race strategy. Do you want to accept it?" And you accept it, and that's when like something's going on where they're basically telling you, "Hey, you need to pit now." So I didn't get any. I assumed that I would get some pop up like that for the rain. Didn't get that. I brought up the MFD and said, "Hey, I want to pit now. I'm coming in." Of course, I assume at this point that knowing, actually, this is my pit stop now. I don't. This is the pit stop now that I'm talking about. This is the pit stop that happened earlier. I came in. They put me on mediums. They didn't put me on wets. And so actually, I just came in just now because when they sent me back out the first time, they sent me back out on a non-wet tire. So for about 2 laps, I was okay. But then the third lap, I started like, at that point, Verstappen was got ahead of me by 5 seconds. Like 6, 7, and 8 behind me also overtook me. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I look up. This is all partially my fault. I look up, I see I'm on the mediums. I say, crap. Now I've already come in for an extra pit stop. I got to come in for another one. Like this race is thrown for me. And of course, while I'm thinking I've got to come back into pit, I'm like, I have no idea how to tell these guys to put me on wets because I've never had to do it before. So, and then when you saw me go out to the home screen, right? I was pausing it because I was trying to figure out, like, is there somewhere like in the menu or whatever? And I eventually found it. Like, the car was literally in pit lane, and I had it paused, and I was like, if I don't figure this out right now, I'm gonna pit. Like, I literally, like, because when I took it off pause, I had like 2 seconds before I wouldn't be able to provide any more inputs to changing what I was telling them to do in the pit. So miraculously, I figured it out, right? And then told them to put me on intermediates, and now I'm back out on intermediates. I come back out in position like 14. I can't. At this point, there's like 4 laps left in the race, and I'm like, whatever. So I actually wound up being able to overtake like 3 people and got into position 11. Again, another impact for my age. I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is going to turn out okay. I'm going to walk away from points. Again, I'm not watching Formula One. I used to watch it a lot. I'm now forgetting at this point that the way Formula One used to work, I'm pretty sure, is you used to get points down through down through finishing as low as 13th. But then several years ago, they changed the rule and they only awarded points to the top 10. So, of course, I came in 11th out of the points. So that was heartbreaking. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break, but I want to go back to F122 because I want to check whether or not I'm straight about these rule changes, about ERS, because I swore ERS wasn't active, blah, 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 blah. So the next day I switched to F122, and for some reason, I don't know what happened. I mean, my PlayStation 5 is on an ups. For some reason, I just literally in lap 29, I happened to be in the same round. So it was also the Grand Prix of Australia. Lap 29 of 29 laps, I'm in the lead about to win the Australian Grand Prix. That ups just totally loses power. PlayStation 5 shuts down. Just the classic, when you were a little kid, somebody just dumps power on your game save. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm taking a break from Formula One for now. So, but at any rate, same tale as what you said last time, right? My discussion of that story and what happened to me and that drama and those feelings, means that I'm totally immersed and I'm having a great time with the game. And it's unfortunate people are having problems with it. So hopefully that'll get corrected for them soon. I know I went on for a bit, but I did want to do a report out on my initial impressions on F1.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think this is the beauty of sports games, right? Is that we get to create those immersive stories, and just hearing you go through that and talk about the tension and the drama and the attempt at a comeback and the sudden getting down, all of those things. It's the highs and lows that are emerging in that game that are not necessarily a pre-programmed story beat. And that, I think, makes the investment in it all the more engaging. That if you have that, and especially when you're feeling that immersed in it, that is, even the physical fatigue makes a difference, right? You feel that way in terms of you are racing, and that's such an amazing, cool thing that video games can do for us.
Yeah, and you hit the nail right on the head. Driving, as much as I love driving with the wheel and pedals, that force feedback is plowing through the wheel through your arms and in your chest. In order to be similar to kind of how you sit in a cockpit in a race vehicle, I'm super slouched down in the chair. The pedals are way out in front of the wheel. So part of the reason I also had to take a break was I was walking around my house and I've been lifting, going back to lifting weights. And so I've been sore and stuff, but I was walking around my house and I'm like, I didn't do legs yesterday or the day before. I'm like, why am I so sore? And I'm like, oh, this is me and I spent a lot of time in F1 this week. I spent 10 hours, and usually I don't typically do that long of a stint, in a couple of days. So yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is the demanding physicality of the race on your body, which is kind of cool to see that translated as well.
Yes, but I have gone on and on and on ad nauseum about my adventures in F1. So let's hear what you've been getting back into, because one of the games I actually had queued up on my Nintendo Switch for a pre-order, although there's no cost associated with it. But haven't had a chance to get into it, so I'm very excited to hear how your second game has been doing. But
well, let's start there with Star Wars Hunters. So this is the free-to-play Zynga game, the 4-on-4 squad-based shooter on mobile and on Switch. I don't think it's on any other console. At this point, I've played a couple hours. Well, I don't know about a couple hours. I guess probably a couple hours. I'm maybe level 7 overall in terms of profile progression. You level up each different character. So it is relatively simplistic in terms of its gameplay, but it's also really engaging. I'm finding myself really enjoying it. It is the class base, more or less, that you've got tanks, you've got kind of high damage assassin types, you've got support characters, and so it kind of goes through your kind of archetypes, but you get in mobile, it shoots for you. Like you have to get your reticle close to the other team, and it's going to shoot for you. On Switch, it's a trigger button. Everything not everything. Depending on your character, the buttons map differently. On mobile, it's all virtual gamepad. You've got buttons on your right-hand side that do your special moves, and an ultimate that charges up in the center. And that kind of interface still is the same on Switch, except it maps the different special moves to your buttons, and mainly shoulder buttons.
But on mobile, it is controller compatible, isn't it?
I think so. I haven't tried it with a controller, but yeah, I would assume that it is, because it's already laid out that way. Yeah, it is. Go ahead.
And you're right. Based on the filing information for the game, when I was looking at it a month or so ago, this game is only coming, as of right now, it's only coming to one console, and then everything else is mobile for the time being.
And I think that fits. I mean, the maps are relatively small, and it works nicely because it's 4-on-4. So you don't spend a lot of time navigating the map. There are side paths. You're on Tatooine, you're on the Force Moon of Endor, you're on the Death Star, you're in a variety of different kind of places. You're in a hangar, a lot of kind of traditional Star Wars places, but they're also very compact. Mainly the two modes that I've seen at this point are a control point mode, where you've got 3 control points, one, basically one in the center and one each closer to the initial spawn points. And then it's a straight on death match of kind of first team to 25. And it ends up being pretty, it works really well as a squad base. Like I've played, at this point you start with kind of a assassin damage character, like a bounty hunter. Then you unlock a stormtrooper who's kind of a tank, and also a Wookiee who's a tank. Then you can unlock a healer. And all of this, the unlocks come through challenges in the game. Like you can buy individual characters. Free to play. Woo. You can buy individual characters. At this point, each character is 1,000 gems, or 999 gems, and your 1,000 gems is $9.99, $10. So but if you kind of churn through it, you're slowly be unlocking characters. So everybody, except for the character in the paid battle pass, who's a Mandalorian, at this point, all your other characters are earnable if you kind of grind your way through.
So you are getting, so the setup is it looks like you're going to buy the battle pass, and that's going to get you a new character?
That gets you a new character At this
Okay.
point, it's only one character in the battle pass. Lots of skins, gems, things like that. I haven't gone through and done the math if you get enough gems in the battle pass if you progress all the way through to get another character.
And I apologize if I missed it. So this is arena based, and is this 3v3 or
It's 4v4.
Oh, 4v4? Okay.
Yep. So most of the time, the composition has been like 2 tanks or 2 damage and 1 support. And
What is how's the mix between like ranged versus melee? Like, is this primarily a shooter or?
there are melee characters, right? You've got a Wookiee who's a melee character. You've got Jedi and Sith who are melee characters. They are faster, and they've got either like the Sith has like a jump move that will traverse a little bit further. The Jedi has like a force pull that will bring enemies to them. So there's they kind of negate some of the distance because of those aspects. The Wookiee has like a charge attack that will, if you're close, it'll push somebody all the way, slam them into a wall. If you are further away, it will close the gap. And so they try to negate some of that. I have found, at least for me, playing with playing distance characters, playing with rifles and guns, blasters, is more satisfying than the melee aspect because you are relatively tight in a third person perspective. One of the things there's not, at least there's not on mobile that I've seen, and I haven't seen it on the interface in the Switch as well, is there's not an overall map. You don't get like a outline of the map. You can get if your opponents are in kind of behind the next wall, you get an outline of them, so you kind of have a sense of where they are, but you don't necessarily get kind of a full, you don't see people moving around on the map itself. So, but I really enjoyed playing with the Stormtrooper. You've got like a heavy repeater blaster that can pop up a shield. Your ultimate brings down 2 other Stormtroopers to attack with you. But then, the support character, the first support character you unlock has like a backed grenade that you drop it down and it heals anybody in that radius. And the ultimate has like you plant the flag and it has a larger square radius of healing. So it ends up, my best games as a support character are doing kind of what exactly I should be doing as a support character, is following along my tanks and keeping them healed so that they can keep dealing out damage. And which is fun. It's satisfying. I think the end of match kind of scoring doesn't necessarily reward heals at this point. So you get assists, you get kind of objective bonuses, and you get kills. So in terms of the score, and the score doesn't necessarily, equate to it. It helps give you XP, but so you've got what you get in terms of a score, but then you can also, as you have, because this is a free-to-play game, there are lots of challenges, right? Like you've got X number of damage from distance, or pop your ultimate X number of times, or heal this number of health points. So you kind of, there's a number of ways to go through that. Matches are 5 minutes long. The timer of them is only 5 minutes. So if you're in a death match, I've had death matches that I've either won or have lost that have only gone like 2 minutes, because you can totally dominate sometimes depending on who you're playing with. There is kind of a general all-purpose kind of kind of hopper that you're jumping into, or you can play ranked. So there's unranked and ranked at this point in terms of game modes.
When you're playing on Switch, are you playing handheld or docked?
I've been playing handheld, but I've also been playing handheld with a Hori Compact. So it's got a better, it's got a better analog stick.
Yeah, yep. That's what I use on my Switch LCD as well. Yeah, there's just nothing that beats playing on the Nintendo Switch when your enemies are on mobile. I used to play a lot when I was first getting my teeth into Fortnite and figuring it out. back when I was like had been away from competitive shooters for a very long time, I played a lot on the Switch, right, to have that advantage against mobile players, and yeah, it's quite enjoyable.
Makes a difference. Yep. Yeah, having a little bit of that analog aspect. So yeah, I'm actually enjoying it. I'll be curious to see, how much I stick with it. If I, hopefully that it'll be interesting to see what matchmaking looks like. Like, does it base you around people around your same level? In terms of as this game goes on after the first week or so, when the cream rises to the top, what about the rest of us? So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It feels like, and I think one of the reasons I enjoy this, it feels like I'm playing one of the later PSP Battlefronts. Like, there were like Rogue Squadron. There were a couple different PSP specific Battlefronts, and because it's got that kind of tighter map, smaller group, so it has a very kind of Battlefront feel without necessarily having the scale of a Battlefront, and that makes it, actually, to me, it makes it a little more manageable because you know who you're tackling, you have a sense of the different abilities, and you're not spending time kind of crossing a map that you're in and out of the action very quickly. So it makes it a good pick up and play kind of quick match type of game.
So last question I had was you mentioned kind of not having a mini map. So the impression I had from, and I mean, I think there were 2 trailers about this game total, like 3 and 4 years ago. I covered this on an episode talking about games that like there hasn't been a ton about this game. In fact, except when I went like super digging for it, was the only way I even became aware that the game was coming out, was imminent to come out like in a month. How big are the maps? Because the impression I had from the 2 trailers was that like it was like line of sight, right? That the maps were so small that like you wouldn't have like tons of cover or nooks and crannies or any place to like transit to. But it sounds like your discussion on the minimap thing made me think that they're the size of like Overwatch maps.
Probably not as big as Overwatch, in terms of how long it takes to close the distance from one end of the map to the other. But they are usually, there is at least a couple doorways, hallways, different building structures in between each of the objective points. So you're probably traversing 4 to 6 different structures. Depending on the, like in Tatooine, it's relatively straight and narrow, but you're still weaving in and out of doorways and huts and things like that. On the Death Star, it's much more kind of straight angles, but you're moving in and out, and it feels like a cross section of a Halo map to some degree, because there's 2 levels in some of these. Sometimes they're really flat, but then you get to like the Ewok map, and you've got there's jump pads that will take you up to the tree line level, and then you can snipe down from people from the tree line level. And so there's some verticality in it depending on the map, and there's a lot more places to like playing the tank with the Stormtrooper. There were some matches early on, like once I got past bots and playing against real people, that I stayed alive the whole time, or I died only once. Like, there's enough options of being able to retreat a little bit, get behind some cover, around a corner, and there are spots on the map where there are holograms of health or kind of energy boosts to kind of boost your super. And so you can either retreat there or retreat back to your support character. So there's ways to kind of engage and disengage with a battle to keep that ebb and flow of a rhythm going.
So that's one licensed property. The other game you've been playing is
the
yet
other
another
free game I've been playing is Multiverses. This is the WB crossover of all their different properties. It was out in early access beta back in August of 22, and it came back out at the end of May. And I will say the first thing I thought booting it up and looking at the characters is, I sure wish back when it was out before, I would have plunked down $30 to unlock 8 to 12 different characters, right? Like now that it's fully free to play, you get any character that you unlocked previously, and then you get a rotation of 3 free characters, and that's it. So you've got to purchase characters. It is slower than it was in the beta. It's running on UE5 versus 4 at this point. The screen and the viewable area, the field of view, is zoomed in a little bit further, so a little bit closer, so it's tighter on you, which I think works because it is slower. If you were as fast, it would be more difficult, but it does. The closer of the camera makes characters like Tom and Jerry more difficult when they can separate, or when you have attacks that kind of spread out. The map does zoom out, kind of a la Smash Brothers. And I've played some online battles. I'm not great, but I enjoy the combat. They have a PvE mode, which kind of, you go from node to node, and you're kind of in a story-based objective with playing against different characters. But this game is monetized and free to play all up and down as well. You've got multiple different kind of quest activities depending on the overall season battle pass. You've got quest activities for the Joker, who's a new character. You've got quest activities for the Agent Smith, who's coming out next month. So there are lots of things to kind of that dopamine drip of, the Skinner box of playing a little bit and completing a quest and claiming your rewards and seeing the bar go up, which is nice, but it also makes the UI outside of the actual game. There's just a lot of layers to navigate through. And then you get into kind of where things are price wise, that at this point, all characters are the same except for the newest character, Joker. Jason Voorhees is you unlock on the battle pass if you pay the premium, or if you were anybody who played the first beta and early access, you get a free premium battle pass. So that was nice to be able to have that. But before, there were different tiers. Like some of the more common characters were 800 shards versus 1,000, and now everybody's at 1,000. That there's not as many tiers there. So in it is like, as far as monetization, the Joker, along with enough shards to unlock another character, is $20, which feels like a lot until I just talked about Star Wars Hunter, where everybody is $10 each. So, it is, again, the nice thing about it with Multiverses, and this was just the same in the early access beta, was that everybody can be earned with in-game currency as well, just a lot more of it, right? You've got to churn your way through to do those things. So that's a piece of it. There are, online, I think I have noticed some of the things that people have raised concerns about in terms of the slowness of movement, that some of the button remapping that was available in the beta is no longer there. They just came out yesterday, I think, and said, we know that there are things that are missing and they're still on our roadmap to get in. And they were, I think this must have been I don't know why the end of March was the right deadline for them, but I'm assuming that this game was pushed back, because I remember, I don't know, in April, May, March, I stopped at a McDonald's for the first time in a year, and they had Multiverses Happy Meal toys. So, so at some point they thought they were coming out sooner than this. But it's enjoyable. I think one of the things that both my sons and I have noticed, and they've played a little bit, they're much bigger in platform brawlers and spent more time with Multiverses the first time around. But one of the things that it does that it didn't do in the early access was that in local multiplayer, you only have unlocked the characters that you own. You don't have everybody. Which was what it was before, and it's something that they've even acknowledged in terms of they're working on a way to set that up for tournaments, right? The benefit of this was for local tournaments that there was a way to, you didn't have to have everybody unlocked. And so they're aware of kind of the limitation there, but there's also just been a tournament this week. And so there's, I think it'll be interesting to see what the player base looks like. I think Multiverses made a really big splash in the fall of 22 in terms of platform brawlers. But then as the content drip kind of slowly dried up, that it faded. I think they certainly know that part in terms of keeping a more steady content drip. But I also wonder if, because of some of these other changes, like the movement speed, if that is something that puts this game on maybe a shorter leash with fans than what it was before. That if, so I'll be very curious to see. I mean, I hope it does well. It's nice to have a family-friendly platform brawler that is something beyond Switch. I've enjoyed the Nickelodeon brawlers, but they haven't really found a big enough audience in a kind of competitive place. And Multiverses definitely was leaning into that the first time around. So it'll be curious to see, like any free-to-play game, like what's the tail on this? Like how long does this have until people kind of give up on it and only the hardest of the hardcore are playing, and what does that look like in terms of what they need for monetization to keep it going, as we've seen WB be in other places within their catalog of properties and movies and TV shows. Like how quickly, what are they looking at and what are they expecting as a turnaround? But given the IPs, there's a lot of road ahead of them if they can sustain it.
All right, I have several questions I would like to ask, but we're moving under a time constraint tonight, so I definitely want to spring ahead, and I'm going to go straight to the PlayStation State of Play, because I definitely want to get our opinions on that. One, because I was specifically asked that we cover it on the show, and some of the other news items aren't super impactful. So I'm sorry, what was that, DBQ?
No, I was ready to launch into the State of Play. So
yeah, so let's first talk about Concord, because that is the belle of the ball and the thing that everybody's talking about. I think and I'm going to assume that everybody's seen it. Basically you have an opening sequence in a bar, and then this crew gets attacked by another crew, and it's a cinematic trailer that opens the show, and then there's a whole kind of inner street, urban street kind of chase scene with the characters making a daring escape. Now, at this point, I'll mention there are lots of people drawing comparisons of this game and the cinematography to Guardians of the Galaxy. There was one other reference that I can't remember that I heard on actually heard it on Podcast Beyond today from Damon Hatfield, who's normally the host of Game Scoop, but was on Podcast Beyond. I can't remember the other pop culture reference that he made. But what's disappointing is that everybody who's making these pop culture references apparently hasn't watched Firefly. Because if you watch Firefly, you would know that opening cinematic trailer cuts closer to the cloth of Firefly than the Guardians of the Galaxy and anything else that they mentioned. Because Firefly was a crew in the space opera made to look like the Old West, who constantly run around to planets doing jobs for other people that they were commissioned to do, stealing contraband, in most cases, trying to get away with it, quite often not knowing exactly what it was that they were stealing or why, and constantly running into enemy crews that they'd had run-ins with before, who were trying to get the drop on them to also steal the same thing, because they had also been commissioned to go steal it, sometimes by the same people that had commissioned the Firefly crew to go steal it. So, like, that opening trailer was, like, in the main character in the opening trailer actually, is very similar in kind of his bravado and the way he carries himself to Malcolm Reynolds. So, I think the big concern for me is one thing, like I said, what I hear a lot of the commentary about is about the success or failure of this game. And first of all, this is something we need to not be bothered talking about, the game's in pre-production. Like why we wrap ourselves around the axle about that, I never understand. But my thing is, within the PlayStation portfolio, remember what the whole games as a service stratagem is about. It's about the reason there's so many of them is because there's no one of them to rule them all. There's no dependency upon one of them to be some bang up success that everybody else rides the coattails on. And if you want to bang up success, they've already had it with Helldivers 2, which was completely unexpected. I like the cinematic trailer. Of course, cinematic trailers don't mean a lot to me because it means nothing, right? The gameplay could come out and be completely different. The big thing that I picked up on, and the question that I've been asking, is Firewalk Studios is only about 159 people. Maybe they're at 200. Maybe they've ramped up. But Susie Benson came through and mentioned, if I have her name right, is it Susie or Sean? I can't remember.
Not sure.
The woman who came over from Apple, who's now I think she was running Apple Arcade over there and is now like head of like studio partnerships or something like that.
Keep going. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was her who came on during the show, who came on and mentioned that that the intention of this team is for them to put out weekly narrative drops, right? And so you're going to be playing the game, you're going to be going around and doing these heists, and then in that, like each week you're going to get. I'm not going to say assert that it's going to be the same length, but what it sounds like to me is each week you're going to get some type of mini trailer that is kind of like, I think there have been Overwatch like story drop trailers, but maybe I don't play Overwatch a lot. What it more so reminds me of is like that opening montage that you get at the beginning of a new Destiny 2 DLC. So I don't think it's going to be that robust or as complex or as lengthy as those types of things, but basically you're going to get a little webisode basically to tell you about this ongoing story from week to week. Whether or not that actually matters to what you're going to, but I guess I would assume that it will be the opening to like different jobs that are available that week that you're going to be going on, different parts of the narrative. Maybe you'll see, maybe that's the way they'll introduce new characters. I assume that that's sometimes going to come along with new content. And I'm like, at 159 people, this isn't like a 300 person team. Like, so I'm very curious to see what is the release cadence expected to be? Mm-hmm. What is the content? You mentioned the slow drip, and I'm like, how is this 159 person studio going to keep up? Because there's only two ways to compete these days, right? With these types of games, because there are other hero shooters. I think one of the key differences here is you have a very captive audience when you're deploying as an exclusive to the PlayStation platform, and then you're going to concatenate that with your audience on PC. But like one of the key ways to compete these days is with content, right? Whether or not it's more or it's better or you have better looking cosmetics or whatever. So I don't know, DBQ, what were your feelings about Concord?
No, I think, and for clarification, it's Sean Benson, Shawne. So, yeah, I mean, it looks, I think it looks like it has a lot of potential. I think anytime that analysts or fans start talking about a new, multiplayer shooter, you're right. It does kind of devolve into, is this game going to be around? And whether or not that is, I think that's a logical discussion from a business perspective. I think the first piece is this fun, right? Like, is this, it sets a nice kind of atmospheric tone with the opening that it has the potential to be doing something a little different with squad-based shooters. I just got done talking about how I enjoyed Star Wars Hunter as a squad-based shooter. Like, I think there's definitely space for it. We certainly know that PlayStation 5 is a significant install base. We also know that, according to Square, it's not a big enough install base to recoup big costs. So I'll be interested to see, if this goes the Helldivers route of launching day and date on PC and PlayStation.
It definitely is. So there have been a few strategic updates during the week that have been kind of off, like maybe not Square in gamers' view screen, but they did a Sony corporate strategic update, I think like 2 weeks ago, as a presentation or webisode to investors, webinar to investors, and then they followed that up actually the same week right before the showcase with a game division specific strategic update. So yes, in Herman Hull's brief that multiplayer games. I mean, and he said it before, right? But multiplayer games will be going day and date to both PC and console.
Yep. Which I think makes sense in terms of giving that install base. And like Warren says, if they're using Helldivers as an example, like they've got a nice template of how to engage with that community and how to, spin up something. So I hope for the best. I think it's also probably, other than one other game we're going to talk about later in this, I think as a first party offering from Sony, there's not much else. So they have the opportunity to really push some weight behind it in terms of marketing coming into the fall.
Well, this is the big thing about, I often talk a lot to my teams in software about how they interplay, how their dynamic as teams interplays with the overall company strategy. I do that to prepare them for sometimes when some of them are going to get pushed a little, and the explanation is that, look, there's a team over here that may be trying their best, but their customer's difficult to deal with, or they're unhappy, or they've got a vendetta because they don't like software, whatever the case, right? But or maybe they just screwed something up, right? In a series of like 12 incremental milestones. Incremental milestone number 8 was bad. They flubbed something. They had a security, whatever is the case. And I'm like, okay, our relationship with that customer isn't great. So you guys over here who are doing really well, I need you to I need to put, like, your customer likes you, you're making deliveries. I'm going to have to push you guys to go above and beyond. Because over here on the other side, no matter how much I push that team, they're not going to get back like in good graces, like anytime soon. So this is a year when you look at things as a portfolio, and I talk about this a lot amongst the amongst the publishers and the platform owners, that management and kind of perspective is at the portfolio level. When people ask these questions about, well, why are all games $70? Why aren't some of them? I'm like, because we're going to set the price at the portfolio. Like, we're not going to do onesie twosie. Like, that just makes it confusing. It makes it difficult for, et cetera. So my whole point is this production pipeline is managed as a portfolio. And so one thing to keep in mind is that, hey, if the first party marquee studios aren't putting out, as PlayStation has indicated, aren't putting out tentpole IP releases that everyone's familiar with, and that gives you a bigger, like this is the time in your cadence, right, to say, hey, this is the year of gas, right, or whatever, this is the year to make different plays and to fill that gap with stuff that isn't Uncharted, Infamous, God of War, right, all these things that people are super familiar with. So, yes, there's not much else, right, but the fact that there's not much else, is a strategic opportunity, right, for them to play.
Yeah, I think you're
games.
exactly right. Like, because there's not much else, they can really emphasize this and give it space to breathe and find an audience.
Yep. So the other ones of these, I'm trying to keep an eye on time. We will run down pretty quickly. God of War Ragnarok on PC. Anything big, major to say about that, DBQ?
I think that's expected, right? It's coming out this September.
Yeah, big thing is that I noticed that is it's bringing all. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that I even have to mention this because it's an indication of things that the industry hasn't been doing well. All 3 frame generation technologies are going to be present in the game at launch. So it's going to support XeSS for Intel's Arc GPUs, as well as FSR 3.1, actually, because FSR is a big key differentiator amongst titles. FSR 3 is because of its new capabilities and not all games having it, as well as DLSS. And as far as I know, it'll be DLSS 3 for 4000 series cards will be available. And then,
that's what I heard. That was 3 as well. Yep.
And that includes the Valhalla DLC
expansion. Yep.
Dynasty Warriors Origins. This one caught me off guard. Any comments, DQ?
I mean, it's not surprising that there's another Musou game, like that it's actually a Dynasty Warriors and not an IP licensed aspect. But I think, it'd be interesting only because if it does anything different in terms of scale with the power of the PlayStation 5 versus, like, it's spent so many past years on PlayStation 4 and Switch that potentially, but it's a Muso game, so people kind of know what they're getting.
And it spent so many years on past consoles where we are accustomed to seeing the frame rate like just drag down as more and more characters got on screen. So we're hoping, we don't see that this year. I was surprised because I was looking at it, I was like, this can't be a Dynasty Warriors game, can it? Because every time I think that this game, like that franchise is people have gotten fatigued with it, but I'm like, here we go. Here's the title that also surprised me and caught me off guard. Infinity Nikki. Any comments, DBQ?
I think cute little kind of platforming, kind of a little bit of gardening, a little bit of costuming,
fashion,
yeah. I think again, going back to what you were just saying about there's gaps, like this feels like it has the potential to, given the size of the install base and that there are people with multi-age and generation, like it's a game for as somebody who was just playing Princess Peach Showtime, like sometimes you need a game for a preteen or a elementary school person, and this looks like it has that, but it also could be kind of that relaxing kind of Animal Crossing kind of farming crafting sim that also in the heat of all kinds of other big action games might find an audience.
So here's the thing that I've been inviting people to consider, as crazy as it might sound, right? So I'm at PlayStation, I'm making the console, right? And I say, I've sold 50 million of these things. We're the market leader, right? We've got the most market share. We're outpacing Xbox. We and Nintendo have essentially taken the battlefield and divided it in half. And we've taken the vast majority of the high end. They've taken the low. I'm at the midpoint of the console's life cycle. I got the PlayStation 5 Pro coming out. What I might just happen to say is, hey, in fact, I may have a marketing or a money person coming at me saying, hey, great job. You sold 50 million consoles. We talked about this on a podcast a few weeks ago. This is not this one, but somewhere else. And I'm like, yeah, you know what finance people do when you do well? They come to you and they give you what they call a programmatic challenge to tell you, great, you blew away your old milestones. Now you need to achieve even more. Right. Actually, we talked about this on the Gaming Circle podcast. There was a gentleman there named Marchie, who's actually a developer at Ubisoft, who was commenting on some of the industry dynamics. And I'm like, so, it's hot. There's the possibility that these guys are saying, hey, what I need you guys to focus on is I need you to focus on how to sell more those consoles to the people you're not already selling them to. You've got those people in the bag. You sold the 50 million. The people who are of the same demographic coming behind them are going to do the same thing. Well, maybe we need to take a drum beat in our PlayStation showcases and state of play to put stuff in a show that attracts the other demographic, right? And this is where I get to, people should understand at this point that like not every showcase, not every state of play is going to be for you, right? You could easily have a state of play, like in a series of 3 state of plays, one of them could be a bunch of Infinity Nickies, right? Because they don't need to sell consoles to you because you already bought one, right? So I don't know. That's just a possibility. I won't be playing this game either, Warwana, but I do. I have daughters. Other people have daughters, and maybe those people will want some stuff to play. Anything to mention about Ballad of Antara?
No, I'm okay. I mean, it looks artistically striking, but as a Souls-like, I'm okay to move on to something else.
Right. There were a couple of VR games in here, and concurrently, a couple of days later, we get the PSVR 2 adapter, which will make PSVR 2 functional with PC, albeit short of a few capabilities. I did a write-up on Twitter today where I said I think that those are there because of technical limitations and challenges that they were not able to surmount. And there was a go line that said ship the thing. I suspect they will continue to work on those, but because the PSVR 2 headset was not originally designed with the intent of working with PC, I use this phrase quite often in software engineering. I talk about teams coding themselves in a corner, right? Implementing something and then not having the forevision, right, to consider how else you might reuse it, and then that creates a problem down the road. Anything particular about these VR titles that you saw, DBQ?
I mean, I think Alien in VR looks, as somebody who really enjoyed Resident Evil in VR, even if it jump scared me, like I can appreciate this. It is also, is it worth the discounted $450 for PlayStation VR? Yeah, but right, so no, not too much. And I think the next game with Rivals, I'm pretty sure we'll be talking more about this as the beta comes out. But it's not a surprise that it's coming to consoles, both PC. I mean, both PlayStation and Xbox. So, yeah. Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, my feeling on Alien Rogue. What is the name of this thing? Because I suspect this website has it misspelled because that's not a word.
Incursion, isn't it?
Incursion? Yeah, that's
yes. It's incursion
okay.
is what it is. Yeah,
they have it spelled incustion.
Yeah,
So rogue incursion. My two words for that game are screw that. There's no way in the world you're getting me in a VR headset to play an Aliens game. Not doing it. Marvel Rivals, I still don't get it. That's one of the reasons why I made the specific question to you about, it with Star Wars Hunters. Is that more ranged or melee? Marvel Rivals touts itself as a shooter. I don't know how that works in a superhero comic book universe where some characters are decidedly melee characters. So we'll see how that pulls
yeah,
off.
we'll have to see how that. I mean, although I'm interested in the beta, like I like the properties. The third person aspect of it could be interesting. We'll see how it goes. And again, we moved on past the VR piece just to make sure that nobody thinks we're talking about Marvel Rivals as a VR piece.
Yes.
So.
And so the other two things I want to hit here are we've got some horror remakes. We've got Until Dawn and we've got Silent Hill 2. I'm going to skip Path of Exiles 2. I figure if you know about Path of Exiles, you are deep in a hyper fan based culture and you already know about it. Until Dawn and Silent Hill 2. Any comments on these two horror games?
I think Until Dawn, I played it on the PS5 with the PlayStation 4 version, and it still looks really good. I mean, it's a fun kind of narrative based game. The graphics look amazing. Silent Hill 2 is kind of the high water mark of the franchise. It'll be interesting to see if it captures that, but it's also a franchise that doesn't have a lot of cultural kind of panache anymore either, right? Their last attempt was the interactive web-based game that kind of crashed and burned on its way out the door. But this game has a lot of legacy and history to it. So hopefully, yeah, as a series, as someone who played through multiple endings of the original Silent Hill, I always appreciate what it can be. And I think Silent Hill 2 does that pretty well. I think, Shattered Memories did that pretty well on the Wii and PlayStation 2. Like when Silent Hill is psychological more than jump scary is really where I've always found it to succeed. So I'll be interested in it.
So to round us out, I will make it dealer's choice and let you pick to make commentary on either Monster Hunter Wilds or Astrobot.
Well, I'm most excited for Astrobot. I think that's Astrobot Rescue Mission was, in our superlative show, that was my most fun game of that year, right? Even as a PSVR headset game, it was a lot of fun. And this looks like a lot of fun as a kind of full-blown 3D platformer within the kind of Sony montage and kind of celebrating its history. So I'll say that, like, it's super exciting. I'll also say graphically, Monster Hunter Wilds looks pretty nice.
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't have any investment in Astrobot. I feel like Monster Hunter Wilds it'll be interesting to see if they're doing this deliberately. I feel like it's a swing back stylistically towards Monster Hunter World. It felt like that to me more so than a continuation, like the bolt on, like the next thing after Monster Hunter Rise. So I wonder if they're kind of playing at two different styles,
alternating teams, or yeah, I think Rise was definitely intended to be kind of a throwback in terms of its style, and this, even just from the trailer, definitely feels closer to Worlds, which was also really popular. So
Okay. So we've got to get out of here. DBQ and I have been playing other stuff, Hellblade 2, Horizon Chase 2, Princess Peach Showtime, and Capes. But we're not going to talk about those tonight.
Can I just need to say one sentence to you.
Yeah.
Superhero XCOM.
I saw that. I've looked in on that game. I definitely have Midnight Suns vibes going on as well.
Except it doesn't have a card base, so it feels very much in the kind of traditional kind of tactical strategy game. And
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting. A lot on the plate. It's flabbergasting to me sometimes, the people who are saying this is including Jeff Keighley himself, saying that this is a light year. Great. It's not for me. I still can't get around to a bunch of stuff. I'm still trying to squeeze in Call of Duty sessions there. Also, I've been putting in time as the week has started because this show's late on Diablo 4 and Unicorn Overlord. You're getting into Destiny 2, the final shape this week. So we continue to game. We continue to be well fed. We are not starving for content, although there are some feelings that some people are. But
and we're definitely not going to be starving for news when we record on Sunday night. Like by the time Sunday night rolls around, we'll have lots of press conferences or release, drops and shows and things like that to talk about as well.
Yeah, is this
Sunday is Microsoft? We get the
this
Saturday
is
it kind of starts rolling on Friday.
Yes, yeah, it'll be we're gonna dive deep. Thanks so much for everybody who came out tonight. I appreciate you guys keeping up with the Twitter feed and with the front page of the YouTube channel and catching on that the show was delayed. I appreciate it. Innate, you're late. We will have your performance review at some point later and discuss that.
Innate, the game is called Capes. So just in case you want to look it up on your own.
Yeah, Innate, I think this would be up your alley. I know you've been hitting up Unicorn Overlord as well and get into the strategy stuff. So, but yes, I highly encourage you to catch up with the VOD, at least to hear the PlayStation State of Play recap. So just a joke, Innate. I know this was an off night, and I know other people got other stuff to do. So appreciate you checking in. Next week we'll see. Tao is on tap to host. But look, we're in the summer. We have kids. We've got stuff going on. So it's catch as catch can to see what's going to go on next. In the event Tao is not able to make it, I'm hoping DBQ will be able to fill in.
We got lots to talk about. It's going to be a fun show.
Yes, yeah. I had not planned on working my second job this week because I hadn't been thinking about it. But that is absolutely what I'll be doing and taking copious notes. So until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe out there, play the games that you like, and come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been GameLogIQ from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast. Like I said, here with me as always has been DBQ. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.